This video is a continuation of inputs and outputs of the cell and looks at two passive transport modes, osmosis and diffusion. So passive transport is the movement of substances across a membrane without the use of energy. And the two main types are osmosis and diffusion. So diffusion is just a general term really for that movement of substances from areas of high concentration to low concentration. When it's across a membrane, we call that passive transport or diffusion across the membrane. And that happens for small non-polar molecules like oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, dissolved gases, and also small uncharged polar molecules like water and glycerol. Osmosis is diffusion, same thing, except when it's water that is the substance that is diffusing, then we call it osmosis. Otherwise, they are identical, and it's the movement from where those substances are in high concentration to when they're in low. So of course, a high concentration of water means it's pure water. Moving to a relatively lower one, for instance, some sort of solution where there's salt and water, will not be 100% water. And so water would move from where it is pure to where it is diluted. So the reason that substances move from one to the other is across what we call a concentration gradient. So where a concentration of something is quite high to where something is quite low. So the natural process of diffusion is for these molecules to separate out and move across. And so what ends up happening is we can think about this as a slope or a gradient where the high concentrations are one side and the low concentrations at the other, and particles will move down that concentration gradient. Of course, as this happens, the concentration on this side starts to increase, the concentration of that side starts to decrease until it levels off. And at that point, we have an equal amount of concentration on both sides, and the dynamic process is that the particles are moving both left and right and equaling out all the time. And that's a process that we call equilibrium, a stage of the process called equilibrium. So let's look at those definitions. Diffusion is the movement of solutes, that is dissolved substances, from an area of high solute concentration to an area of low solute concentration. So this might be dissolved salts, might be sugar, might be other substances, but just be aware that not all of these particles can diffuse through a normal plasma membrane. So even though they want to move from that area of low concentration, high concentration to low concentration, even though they don't want anything, but they are going to move in that direction, the membrane might actually block them. But in general, we're talking about the movement of the solutes, dissolved gases, small particles, from an area of high solute concentration to an area of low solute concentration. Osmosis is the same, but for water, the movement of water from an area of high water concentration to an area of low water concentration. So again, osmosis is just a form of diffusion. When we're referring to water, we call it osmosis. Where people think that these are opposite or different is that the movement of direction might sometimes be opposite. So if you have something that's got a high solute concentration, it would therefore have a low water concentration. Whereas if it's got high water concentration, it would have a low solute. And so the water and the solute might move in opposite directions even though they're following the same process. In general, what they both do is that they both act to equalize the concentration of the substance on either side of the membrane. And that continues until equilibrium is reached.